Welcome to the Jock Market Power Hour. I'm Rick Gaiman, and this is the Power Hour for this week's WGC Workday Championship. And joining me to break it all down, it's Joe Idoni. Joe, what's going on?
What's good, man? I'm ready to roll. It's good, nice to have us back in Florida, back in the home state here. So we made the trip from your old coast over to my old coast, and we got a new course this week. So exciting stuff.
We've got a new course, and we assume we are going to have a lot of new viewers. This feels, and we can see it growing week in and week out. So the way that this is going to work is for the next hour or so, Joe and I are going to talk you through the final IPO phase of the Jock Market for this week's golf tournament. And if you've never heard of Jock Market, if you are in the wrong spot, you're lost. Welcome. It's stock market DFS. You're going to be able to bid on golfers. Then you're going to be able to trade them over the course of the 4-day tournament. And it's a lot of fun and people are winning a lot of money. And Joe, we're having an absolute blast with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally new sort of platform and idea out there. They just started back off the restart in June. And like you mentioned, it's sort of stock market times DFS golf. So it's a great opportunity for people to, I think, try this out. We have an awesome promo code down there below if you're new to this and you want to get started with a free $20. And we'll touch base on this later, but $20 can go a long, long way in the Jock Market.
It certainly can, and I will, at the bottom of the screen, I'll be running some tickers for big winners and big losers last week, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But Joe, I mean, this has been, it's been a crazy week. Obviously, all of the Tiger stuff. It is going to be exciting to get golf action, right? To be able to see what's going on the course, kind of see these guys in action for a couple of days, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. So obviously we had the very bad news, and I felt like today, or late last night, as I should say, brought good news in a sense that it was a glimmer of hope. Obviously, it sounds like Tiger is going to be okay, which we were all hoping and praying for. So now just hoping to turn the page and kind of wish him all the best in his recovery, and let's move forward with the PGA Tour season.
Let's do it. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to collaborate, to go back and forth. We've got Brian in the chat. If there are questions, if there are comments, if there are concerns, throw them in the chat. We'll get through as many as possible. And Brian, who is a staple here on the show, welcome, says lots of big targets this week. Who do you think the highest IPO will be when all is said and done? Joe, we got this wrong last week. We got this wrong. So would we like to take another crack at this?
Okay. So I'm going to go Dustin Johnson again this week. I think that I was part of the reason why that was wrong last week. So look, he's playing the best golf. He's the #1 player in the world. He should be the highest owned in terms of the IPO price point this week. But we'll have to wait and see. Last week was the big shocker when Jon Rahm kind of overtook him in the final minutes. And ironically enough, both of them actually paid off their closing IPO price pretty well. So you could have gone well with either one.
They did. They both turned you a profit. Jon Rahm closed at $11. Dustin Johnson at $10.59. We still have Jon Rahm holding the record for highest IPO at $12.51. That was, I believe, American Express week was that week, Joe. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, we can talk to the field a little bit here, Joe. I mean, this is every single player in the top 10. It's 73 players, and there's no cut. So I want to kind of talk about how that is going to impact some of the in-game trading, because these guys, you know, they're not dead on Friday afternoon or whatever. Like they can certainly make a move on the weekend.
Absolutely. And especially the bigger names at the top. I mean, we've seen it enough times where you let these guys kind of linger around in a golf tournament, particularly now with no cut, and the cream tends to rise by Sunday afternoon. I mean, Rahm was a great example last week where seemingly he did not have his best stuff through 3 days. Played reasonably well. I don't even think he had his A+ game on Sunday either, but played reasonably well. And you blink, you look up, and he's T6, and he's paying off $4 a share. So I would look for many of that. You know, we have some interesting names at the very bottom of the board, which I'm not so familiar with. A lot of guys coming over from not only Europe, but from overseas in the Japan tour and stuff like that you always get in these WGCs. Which makes it a very strong field at the top, but could also suggest that it may be a very weak field at the very bottom. You know, those bottom 9 guys there, I'm kind of sort of crossing off in terms of I just don't know enough about them. I mean, you probably are more plugged in than I am with those guys.
Some of them I've never heard of in my entire life, so I'm not even going to try to act like I have. But it is interesting, right? And we're going to talk about this when we get into the pricing for this week. But that the no cut aspect ends the fact that the bottom 10, 12 guys are pretty much unknowns. I would expect those bottom guys to go very cheap over the course of the next hour or so when this IPO closes just before 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm wondering if there are going to be, I don't want to call them bottom feeders, but Joe, are you going to be down at the bottom of this thinking, oh, I don't know, $1.50 for some guy I've never heard of? That might be worth it this week.
You never know, right? I don't know enough about those very guys at the very bottom that I think I'm going to be interested in, but kind of interesting. And a couple of people have pointed this out, and you may notice it when you open up the sort of page later, but there was a little bit of a sort of a glitch in uploading the players this week that Jock Market has, and they've got like 6-7 guys listed. If you open up your Jock Market app now, you'll see a GTD sticker beside their name. I think that stands for game time decision. Those guys are not in the field. So interestingly enough, I think that is going to provide a little additional value at the very bottom of the board because you've got 6 guys listed that are going to finish in the bottom 6 spots because they aren't playing. So really the guy who finishes dead last this week is going to finish 7 spots from last. So, they kind of put themselves in a little bit of a compromised position. And I think that we are all here together as this Jock Market community of players to maybe take a little advantage of it this week. I'm here for it.
So what you're telling me is there's even more of an advantage this week than most. And I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going I don't have the designation in front of me on this tool, but I'm going off of who I know is in this field or not. So I think the guys you're talking to are probably Corey Connors, who is not in this field. Streelman's not in this field.
Yep.
Siwoo Kim.
Yep.
Ricky Fowler,
Henley, Fratelli, Matt Wallace, Reedy, Adam Long. There's like 9 guys there that are obviously going to the very bottom. Do not bid on those guys because they are going to close the very bottom. But I think that elevates everyone else's status up a little bit in terms of, the guy who finishes last usually finishes last. The guy who finishes last in the tournament this week is actually going to finish 9 spots from last. So there is a little bit of value down the board there, kind of an interesting little wrinkle that they threw into the equation this week. But we'll talk through it.
This looks like the alternate set because I know Spieth is the third alternate. I know Ricky Fowler is like the second or third alternate. So I think that's what happened here, which makes a lot of sense. Okay. There was a question here from Rich that I think is kind of interesting. And you mentioned it, Joe, historically at the stroke play WGCs, stars win it, studs win it. A top 10 player in the world wins it 10 of the last 14 times, but it's a weird year. We don't have fans. We've seen kind of Coke Rack defeat a field that, we thought he shouldn't have contended in. Max Homa won at Riviera last week, and we were saying, hey, the cream is going to rise to the top at Riviera. Yeah. Is there a surprise winner that might be coming from further down the board this week to take on that full $25 a share price by the time this is all said and done?
I think it's possible. And the reason I think so is because you look down the board in those guys who are in that 50 to 1, 80 to 1 range. There's some big names there. And there's guys who have won major championships. There's guys who have won big tournaments. There's guys who are coming in good forms. To answer your sort of question, Rich, I have kind of 2 pinpointed in that range for myself. And one is Matt Fitzpatrick, who played well last week, anytime you put him on Bermuda grass has one of the biggest drastic splits and sort of an advantage for him on Bermuda grass. I know that he's kind of made his home base up here in North Palm. So he's played a lot of Florida golf recently. And the other one is Sergio. Look, Sergio, I think is perpetually undervalued, whether it be on the betting board, whether it be in DraftKings, whether it be in the Jock Market. 80 to 1 this week is sort of his odds. He's played very well and has a great track record in Florida, and he is driving the hell out of the ball right now. In his 2 European tour stops, he was number 1 in driving. He was hitting it really before he went over there. Close your eyes, Serge, make a couple putts, and we'll see where things shake out this week.
And we'll see what happens. It is interesting because this is a kind of a chaos week for me. You know, it's a brand new course that nobody really knows what the heck we're going to get ourselves into. We're making a lot of assumptions. We're making a lot of educated guesses. And, you know, with the no fans, we're continuing to doing that. Like, this is just chaos. I think that more likely this event than a lot of other events, we might get a weird winner. I don't know who that's going to be, and I don't know how much more likely it is, but it feels like we might get a weird one, if that makes sense.
I think so. And let me ask you, Rick, do you think the winning score is more likely to be -12 or -20? Like, is it going to play hard, or is it going to like play kind of easy? What do you think there?
I think it's closer to 12.
Okay.
From what I understand, it's going to be relatively firm and fast. It's kind of a big boy course. There's water lurking, I believe, on 12 holes, and I think the only two courses that have water in play on more holes are Sawgrass and PGA National are the two that I believe that I found. So I think that there are also some big numbers. I think that with some of the elevated greens and the runoffs, there's going to be a lot of holes where par's a good score. So I'm kind of expecting a similar situation to Riviera last week, that 11, 12 number. If they go out and scorch it at 20, I'd be really impressed. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. The only thing is it's kind of the first stop and the first run through this superintendent and this setup. So I think in general terms, I feel like anytime a course is hosting an event for the first time, there maybe have the caution flags up a little bit, and they don't want to lose control of the course and have them never want to return and have the players never want to come back. So sometimes they, maybe a little bit easier pin locations. Maybe they don't mow down quite as much right around the greens and some of those runoffs. But, it's a Nicklaus course, and, we have some Nicklaus courses on record, especially one down here in Florida that consistently plays very tough. Obviously, you have Muirfield Village, which always plays very tough. So I expect it to be a very fair test, and I'm interested to see how things kind of play out.
All right, here's an interesting question here from Augur, who says, you showed how well the big dogs have fared in terms of ROI. Why go for long shots? Well, let's look at this. So I've been compiling, and you guys can access this yourselves, the full every single cash market that has ever been done on Jock Market is in this database. And you can go back. I think we're up to 15 now, Joe, which, by the way, that's awesome, right? I can't believe we're 15 into this, but like, how cool is that? And what I tweeted out and what I assume this question is in regards to is I just sorted this by average IPO. So basically the studs, right? And I'm looking at some of their average returns. And John Rahm in his 8 cash markets is returning on average 23.8%. And if you click his name, you can see his results. And Justin Thomas as well, he's in that 27% range. It's no surprise that Dustin Johnson has been just absolutely scorching hot. Anywhere you get him, he pays off. But then you see guys like Bryson and Webb, who are historically losers in the cash market, Joe, in the Jock market. And I wonder if there's any surprises on this list, if this data tells us anything, or if we should just realize that it's kind of week to week.
First of all, I think the data is incredible. It's awesome to see this. Find me another place where you can make 20% returns on your money on like 11 of 14 guys in 4 days. There isn't one. It's an incredible opportunity this presents. I think more and more people are being sort of hip to it. Obviously, Bryson stands out there as being a little bit shocking, but he just hasn't played well lately. I think Matt Wolff was another one down the list that stood out to me because he kind of played so well into that run-up before they had it. Look, Matt Wolff hasn't returned to profit yet.
Wow, I did not notice that.
We know the upside that he can kind of carry and when he's on, but you look at these things, and when players start to get a little bit off and they come into it with maybe an inflated value of sort of previous months and events leading up to it that necessarily there wasn't a market for, that's why you see this. But if you look down this list, the majority of these guys, I'd say probably 65 to 70% of these guys are all in the green. There's incredible opportunities here to make money, to make profit, and of course have a little fun doing it.
Look at Cam Smith, 89% on average in 8 cash markets. Okay, so now I want to flip the script. So instead of sorting this by average IPO, let's just sort it by average ROI. And we're probably going to get a couple guys who only have 1 cash market. Yeah, we are. But like, look at so why would you go and look for some of these cheaper guys? Well, let's look at Carlos Ortiz. Carlos Ortiz has played in 9 cash markets. He's averaging a $4.35 IPO, and he has returned you a profit in 5 of those 9, including the big win in Houston. So, I mean, this is a perfect example of why you might want to be investing in some of these guys that are cheaper. Even though the studs are paying off, these guys are also paying off to a pretty significant clip.
Yeah, 100%. There's guys you can go all the way down the list and seek value. I think what stood out to me the most within your tweet is just those guys at the top and how consistent they have been. So one of those guys, I kind of did a little math and a little bit of research using your data that's up there for free on RickRunGood.com. So Xander Schauffele, right?
Okay.
Pull up Xander.
Let's get Xander up here.
So
here he is.
Let's say when you started this thing, you threw in $100. We gave you a free 20. You put that $120 week 1 in the cash market on Xander, and you took those profits every week and kept reinvesting it week after week, every week, just on Xander Schauffele. I'm just trying to illustrate a point here. $120. What is that? 7 cash markets later. You have any idea how much money you'd be up to now?
This is like the compounding interest question. Yes. So I don't know. I have no idea, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot.
$4,024. And that's just Xander Schauffele. Like, it just illustrates the opportunity that's out there with this app and this platform. It's incredible what these guys are doing and the amount of returns consistently you're seeing from guys from the very top of the board to the very bottom.
So I actually think that's kind of interesting. And I want to ask you what kind of, are you doing this? Because listen, golf is a very volatile sport, right? I think we understand that Xander's awesome, that Dustin Johnson is awesome, but everybody's going to have a good weeks and everybody's going to have bad weeks. Kind of a way to almost, mitigate some of that risk and tap into some of that upside is to take Xander and say, you know what, for the next 5 cash markets, like here's my Xander money. Here's my $100 for Xander. And if I lose half of it in week 1, I'll reinvest it in week 2. Are you actively tracking this yourself? Is this a strategy that you're deploying?
I'm not necessarily doing that by just playing the same guy every week. I'm trying, I try my best, and we put in so much work in terms of research and analyzing stuff every week that I like to think that I have a little bit of an edge in sort of picking and choosing my guys. But that said, those returns sort of speak for themselves, and there is some validity to that. The beauty of it is there's so many different lanes that you can take with this thing, that you choose what's best for you, and the majority of them are paying off. And I think that's why we have so many people live here in the chat and so many people joining this sort of platform.
So if you've just joined us, this is the final 30 minutes or so of the IPO phase, the bidding phase for golfers for this week's WGC Workday. At or around 9 o'clock, usually a couple of minutes before, the IPO phase is going to close and your shares are going to be distributed based on those bids. And then we're going to be in the live trading market where you can buy and sell these golfers over the course of the final or the 4 days, the next 4 days of this golf tournament. So that's what's happening here. You can use the code POWER20 to sign up to get a $20 deposit bonus, which, Joe, it is funny. Sometimes it's like, oh, $20. Like, is it worth $20? Well, that's probably going to be 2 shares of the most expensive golfer tonight, right? Like, that's probably what we're looking at.
It'll be very interesting. I wonder what your thoughts are on it. Do you think with the shortened WC field that we see these top guys close around the normal spot, the $10 to $12 range? Or do you think, not having 150 guys in the field and you only have, what'd you say, 72, and you can kind of cross off those bottom 10. Do you think that anyone crosses that $12 and creeps into 13, 14, $15 this week? I don't know.
I don't think so. What I think we're going to get, and I'm trying to find the data. It was just a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was Sony, or remember there was a week where we had like 5 guys who were over $10.
Yes.
Maybe it was last week there was 4, but I think there was a week that maybe it was
I think it may have been Waste Management, maybe.
Yeah, it was. Here we go. So, okay, that was when John Rahm went for $12.51. And also we had 6 golfers over $10. That to me, I think is closer to what I expect. I think the top 10 players in the world are going to be within maybe $1 or 2 of each other. And they're going to be up there at the top, and it's going to be kind of spread out. And then we're going to see, if I had to guess, a Dustin Johnson close at like 11.50 or something like that.
I think you're right there. I mean, the interesting part is, the 12 guys this week are going to pay out $10 or more. So, I think, like you said, we're probably going to see 5 to 6 of them close above that line. That's probably a good prediction, I think.
Before I get into, what the actual prices for this week are, there was a question in the chat that I wanted to get to here about a very specific golfer, and it is Gary Woodland. And it's funny that he's kind of the first guy that we're diving into because he's been kind of bad, Joe, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how much confidence we have in Gary Woodland at this point, but it's not coming from this side of the table. I can tell you that.
But where, like, I would say my counterpoint to that is, like, if you look a little bit deeper, where specifically has he been bad? And last week, it was one category that stuck out sort of like a sore thumb, and it was the putting. I think he lost like 8 strokes putting.
Yeah.
But that said, he's Delray Beach's own down here in Florida, comes back home, maybe a little familiar territory to him. Tends to play the Honda pretty well. I know some people are using that as a comp. I took a little outright stake on Gary Woodland. He was 140 to 1, so I threw a couple bucks on it. It's a huge number. I think it may be a little bit windy. I think it's a good setup for Gary. I'll be interested to just see where his closing price is, but he was a guy, when he had his first couple starts back, that he played pretty well out of the gates. Then everyone kind of hopped on him. Then he struggled a little bit. Now everyone's kind of off of him. So that's kind of the way this sort of Jock Market works, is buy low and sell high, right?
Buy low and sell high. That's the name of the game. Let's look at the prices for this week's WGC Workday Championship. Drum roll, please. Our current most expensive golfer in the Jock Market is none other than that man. It's Jon Rahm. He's $6 at the moment, with Tony Finau at $5.75. Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Cantlay, Dustin Johnson, and Justin Thomas all at $5.55. A couple of things that are noteworthy here, because I know we've got a lot of new viewers. I know we have a lot of new listeners, and obviously this price is going to continue to go up. But let's assume Jon Rahm sells and closes this IPO phase for $6. What you are essentially asking him to do is finish 28th or better. Now, obviously that's going to go up. We expect Jon Rahm to get what, Joe? Into the double digits, $10, $11. So you're essentially going to look to see, if you're an investor, can Jon Rahm finish in the top 10? That's basically the name of the game. Right.
So an important thing to remember as well about this IPO phase is this price right now is fluid, and it's by no means locked. Once this IPO closes, that's when that price locks. So you can't put in for 10 shares of Jon Rahm now at $6 a share and think you're going to be rewarded those shares. He's going to be rewarded to the highest bidder when this IPO closes. So what I tend to tell people to do, and my advice is usually, is create a target price for the player that you are comfortable paying for him. Put in a couple shares of that now so that you have that within your holdings, and then monitor it and put those notifications on. And as this next anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes ticks away, keep an eye on that price and make sure that if you want him, you have a high enough bid to get him.
The other big thing that you want to make sure you are aware of is this projected rank. This is the pre-rank. This is the way that ties are broken. If there are 2 guys tied for third, the better payout will go to the one who ranks higher. And I want to read you the top 5 guys in the rankings, Joe, and you tell me if you like this order, if you hate this order, and who you would have kind of put in here. But Justin Thomas breaks all ties. Justin Thomas is your number 1 pre-ranked golfer. Xander Schauffele is number 2. Dustin Johnson is number 3. Jon Rahm is 4. And Webb Simpson is 5. Your thoughts on this rank?
I think they have the top 4 right. I would probably put them in a little bit different order. I would have DJ and Rahm at the top, and then JT, Xander, but they have the top 4 right. I wouldn't put Webb at 5th, not in any sort of projection that I have going on. Is he actually, I'll tell you right now, I have him 12th. So I'm not hugely high on Webb this week. I think that he doesn't necessarily belong there. But what's interesting about Jock Market too, that's so different than like betting on a guy, is there is like much more value on a guy like Xander, on a guy like Finau, on a guy like Louis, guys who, you know, have this knack and this knock on them for not being able to close the deal and win tournaments. Doesn't necessarily matter here. So if Finau finishes fourth, second in his last 3 events, he's still paying off huge, versus if you had an outright bet on Tony Finau, you're wiped out all 3 of those weeks off 3 fantastic performances in great fields. And as you can see here, he's still returning plenty of value. So that kind of goes out the door, and they don't necessarily have to win to reward you.
Say what you will about Tony Finau not winning golf tournaments. He is a major winner in the Jock Market. He pays out in a huge way. I mean, the last 3 weeks alone, he's gone from $8.75 a share to $20 a share. He's gone from $8.88 to $18, and he's gone from $8.55 to $16. I mean, it's really incredible stuff. I like to see that exact point, which is even without a victory, you are able to find a way to pay off, essentially, is what's happening here. Question in the chat, and Joe, maybe you know about this, but Chris wants to know about Lipsky, who I'm assuming this is David Lipsky. I don't know much about him. I know he split time between, he's played a lot on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. I think he won once, maybe twice. He played well on the Corn Ferry. I think he spends a bit of time on the Euro Tour. I don't know much about him, but if there were guys who are down in that range, Joe, if I'm ranking those last 12 guys, Lipsky's probably towards the top of those 12.
I would agree there. You're right. I don't know enough about him and follow him closely enough to really give you an totally informed opinion here, Chris. But I would definitely rank him. I have him ranked above most of those other like 9 guys at the bottom. I think that he may have been in the sort of championships that Bryson won, the NCAA championships, and had a good finish. I'm not sure if that's him or another guy in the field, but don't have a strong take necessarily on Lipsky this week.
I want to talk about kind of the Euros in a broader sense, because this is, the 73 player field, and a lot of people, there's a combination of a lot of guys people don't know, and then a lot of guys we have not seen in a while. Like I'm very much on record this week as being like a Terrell Hatton backer in the biggest way. I really love this spot for him. And I also like it for the Jock Market, where this is entirely sentiment based. This is entirely, like, for lack of a better phrase, put your money where your mouth is, right? Like that's literally what we're doing here in the IPO phase. And for a guy like Hatton, who has not been here in America, here in the States, he's kind of just like, there's a percentage of people who don't even know he's been playing, and he's been playing great, Joe. So this is really an opportunity. I think the Euro guys, the vast majority of them, the guys who have been playing, but nobody really knows about it, I think there is built-in value this week. Absolutely. And there have been some, it's not like your typical, there's parts of the season where the Euro Tour tends to wind its way down and the fields aren't necessarily strong over there. The fields have been incredibly strong the last couple of weeks. So if you see a guy that's finishing top 10 over there in Saudi and Dubai, a lot of the big boys traveled over there from the U.S. Like you said, it's like we're easy to forget about these guys, right? And how well Terrell Hatton played through the Florida swing last year. And he's just in an interesting spot on the odds board. I'll be interesting to see where his price goes, because I definitely have him sort of on my hot list. Where do you align him? Align him this week with a comparative American player for me. Like, let's say Hatton or Brooks. Like Hatton or Brooks, who do you give the advantage to between those two this week? Because that's kind of like, I'm very much between those two guys in that range. Yeah, probably still Brooks for me. I mean, neither of them are the epitome of consistency, quite frankly. So don't get me wrong there, but that might be good in the Jock Market. But like, I put Hatton ahead of Webb Simpson. I think he's very much on par with Daniel Berger, right? Like where Berger's kind of got that winning upside that we've now seen twice in the restart. Hatton has won, I don't have it in front of me, like 4 of his last 24 worldwide starts. Like the guy's a closer, and one of them is the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So that's kind of where I put him is amongst the Daniel Bergers. That would be a really hard decision for me to break, but I like him more than Patrick Reed, right? Like that's kind of where I have him slotted in. Got it. Cool. Let's pull this back here. So let's get the prices back up here and kind of talk through. So we've got the only guy who has, not the only guy, but like the experience that anybody wants to talk about is Bryson's 2015 NCAA championship that he won here at the concession. And there were a couple other guys who played in that event, but Bryson wins it. And I don't know if it matters because that's a completely different version of Bryson DeChambeau, but he's coming off of a missed cut, Joe. And so is Justin Thomas, and so is Rory McIlroy. And I don't know if we have enough data on this yet in the Jock market about how these missed cuts are impacting pricing the next week. But what we've seen is that, at least on the PGA Tour, missing cuts doesn't really matter, right? I mean, Brooks wins off of 3 missed cuts in a row. Patrick Reed wins off of a missed cut. Daniel Berger wins off of a missed cut. Like, does missed cuts even matter?
I think we could be in a spot with Bryson where we've hit the floor. Essentially in terms of his Jock market value. You see that he was, of those top 20 guys sort of on your board there in terms of IPO price, probably has the worst return of all of them. So I think we may be at that point. Look, I do put some stock in. I know many people are saying that it's worth something, right? The guy's coming back to a place where he's played in tournament conditions before and he's won. Like, that's not worth nothing to me. Like, I'm not willing to completely write that off and just ignore it because it was 5 years ago. Now, how much is it worth? How much is it worth depends on you. But like, if I'm putting it in an odds perspective, I would say, you know, coming to a place where he's probably the only player in the field, or one of the very few that are familiar with how this course is going to play in tournament conditions over 4 days. Is that worth a point off the odds board? Probably. He's coming back to a place where he at least has good vibes. He knows that the last time he was here, he hoisted up a trophy at the end of Sunday afternoon. Is that worth a point? Probably. So, you know, I'm looking for, maybe this is a floor spot to buy Bryson. You know, he's what, like 7th on the list there right now in terms of IPO price. So I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing.
The other angle that I think is noteworthy, and I'll refresh the board here, is the idea that the newcomers, the inexperienced guys, the guys that every single week on the PGA Tour, they go to a course that they have not played before. It's Colin Morikawa, it's Matthew Wolff, it's Will Zalatoris, it's those guys, right? Every single week, it's brand new. They've got to get the greens book out. They got to map it out. They got to do everything. As opposed to Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, they've got years and years and years of knowledge built in. So what about those young guys? Do we give them the extra nod? You're talking about, hey, there's a point for Bryson because he had success here. Is there a point for guys who, I guess, are not at a disadvantage that they normally are, if that's the way to put it?
Absolutely. I give them something. Like, it's worth something. Like you said, there's guys that they're showing up to an event this week and they maybe have 1 year worth of experience in the memory bank, and they're going up against guys with 20 to 25 years that have been coming back to the same event, that have notes, that have books. You know, I keep notes every tournament in terms of trying to make these selections and trying to narrow things down. I have a really good database that I've been building for 3 or 4 years. But when I come to an event like this week, where I have no data, I have no notes from last year to look back on, it makes it harder to sort of prepare. So I think the same thing happens in PGA Tour events. So they're coming into this event, the Colin Morikawas, the Victor Hovlands, the Scotty Schefflers, basically at an even playing field. And they don't often get that, because they're so new.
We have our first golfer who has snapped through single digits and is now into double digits. Don't look. Do you want to take a guess at who it is?
I just saw it. I cheated. I looked. It's Jon Rahm, isn't it?
It's Jon Rahm. He's at $10.
$3 clear.
$3 clear. Why do you think this is? So listen, don't get me wrong. I love Jon Rahm. I think he's phenomenal. I think he plays well, especially at difficult golf courses. He did end up beating Dustin Johnson last week, right? So I get it, but Dustin Johnson is very clearly the best player in the world. And I'm not sure it's all that close. And it doesn't mean Rahm is bad, but why do you think, because again, this is sentiment based. People seem to just like Jon Rahm more.
I know, it's interesting, and I don't know what's necessarily going into it. I mean, it's no shocker that I rank Dustin Johnson higher than him. But if I'm going to make a point for Rahm, he's just been so consistent, and he doesn't have bad finishes. And DJ, it's weird. What's weird about DJ to me is, he lives up here in Jupiter, right? That's where he makes his home. He lives here year round. He doesn't play Florida ever. Like, the last time he played an actual event in Florida besides the Players, you've got to go back to like 2013 when he played the Honda. He doesn't play the API. He doesn't play Valspar. He doesn't play Hahn. So it's strange to me that he kind of elects to play the majority of his tournaments early in the season on the West Coast when this is where he makes his home. But maybe it's something about this area where he just doesn't play well. But these guys are going to catch. These guys are going to catch Rahm here over the next 10 minutes.
Here's the guy that I can already see that is has to be on the move at some point. It's Patrick Cantlay. You know, this is a gift and a curse when you're as good as Patrick Cantlay for guys like us, Joe. Where and I actually got this question earlier in my live chat, and it was like, why haven't you talked about Patrick Cantlay? It's like, what am I supposed to say? He's awesome, and he's awesome every single week. And we talk a lot about guys that are struggling or guys that are really hot, and he's just really, really good every single week. And it's almost like he's so good, he gets overlooked because it's built in. It's normal for him to finish inside the top 10 or the top 15.
100%. That's a very good way to put it that you put there, because like we look for guys who really stand out in one area when we're trying to make a point to sort of back them, and we say, oh, he's a really good Bermuda putter, or this is a strokes game. You know, this is a big scrambling course. He's great at scrambling. He's just really good at everything, and it kind of gets boring in a sense. So he very much goes overlooked, but he's been consistently performing. He didn't have a great Sunday last week, but obviously the 2 times he teed it up before that, you know, write his name in the course record.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah.
So as we get closer here to 9 o'clock on the East Coast, the IPO phase is going to close, and all of your bids are going to be distributed as shares, assuming you are the high bidder. In a couple of minutes, we're going to set Joe free. We're going to say, okay, Joe, have at it. Get on your phone, start doing your bids. But before we really lose him for a couple of minutes, how many guys you eyeing up, Joe? How's it shaping up so far, as we are probably 8 to 9 minutes through this? Like, we're 8 or 9 minutes away from this closing out.
I know. I'm eyeing up a lot, like I always am. My eyes are lighting up, but I feel like, you know, last week I did make a profit, but it wasn't as much as I thought because I think I took too many guys. So I keep falling sort of into this same trap. I'm going to try to narrow it down this week. I feel like we have a little bit of extra value with some of those guys at the very bottom that we mentioned earlier. Look, there's just so many big names here. I want them all, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Here's one. Rick is looking thick tonight, which I think is a good thing. I think it's, I don't know. Is that this hat reminded me of Ches Reavie. I liked that about it.
I think, like, did you hit a little pre-workout before the show today?
Oh, am I looking a little
rolled up a little bit?
Did a couple of push-ups before we went hot. All right. So we are seeing Jon Rahm continue that $10 number, or he was 10.01 last time we checked in. He's now $10.08. So he's moving. Tony Finau was making a move. Patrick Cantlay still at that $6 number. Going a little bit further, real quick, I just want to get your thoughts on some of these lower guys here, because here's another guy. Here's another, you know, you mentioned Matthew Fitzpatrick earlier. Tommy Fleetwood's a Euro who has been playing on the European Tour, and he's been playing just fine. He's $4. You know, anybody down kind of in this range, whether it's Ryan Palmer, Kevin Na, do we trust Matthew Wolff? I mean, Jason Day had a top 10 finish last time he played. He's down here in this range. Anybody you're looking to buy?
You're right. I think Fleetwood is one guy that I certainly have circled. He's one of those guys I've always rooted for. Incredible stats if you look through the years at the Honda, which obviously we've comped 4 straight like top 20 finishes over there in Europe before last week. He seems to be the guy who's 66, 67, 68, and then he has one round where he shoots 2 over par. If he can eliminate that one round, I think he's going to go really well, and he could potentially win. We saw him play pretty well at the Masters the last time we kind of saw him over here too, with a little bit of resurgence in the iron play. So I'm looking for ball strikers. I'm looking for guys who are going to be able to hit small, not necessarily small green surfaces, but small landing areas. I think is something that is very big on these Nicklaus courses with the runoffs and the different levels to the greens.
If Lonto Griffin does not get over like $5.50 in the next 5 minutes, something criminal has happened. Because the guy, you know, and there's a great question in the chat, and then Joe, we're gonna let you get out of here, and we're gonna let you go to work. There's a good question from Brady about any other comp courses. And I think that you were mentioning this earlier. I think the Florida Swings courses are good comps. The Bermuda courses in Florida that can play difficult, I think that's all good. But how about these other events, the CJ Cup, the Zozo Championship, the other times that you get, it's not a course comp, it's like a tournament comp where you get 70 of the best players in the world in a no-cut format. How much are you looking into that comp as well?
It's a great point because you have a guy down there in Justin Thomas who Xander gets all this love for kind of being the no-cut king. JT is that dude in no-cut events. Second, first, sixth, first, third, seventh, first is like he shows up to these events in no-cuts and these WGCs and balls out. So there's definitely guys who have a tendency to play better. You can't ignore it in these type of circumstances.
Justin Thomas invented the no-cut king. Xander Schauffele is just like the no-cut prince at this point. It's pretty crazy. Okay, Joe, fire up the phone. We are probably 4 or 5 minutes away from this IPO closing. So right before 9 o'clock, usually a couple of minutes before, this is going to close. And all of your bids are going to be allocated as shares of golfers. And now normally what we do around this time is we let Joe do his thing so that we can see all the shares that he has afterwards, and we can mock him and we can ridicule him about who he ended up buying. So that's the phase that we are in right now. And I'm going to take you down the home stretch. So let me give a refresh to our tool and make sure that I've got all the correct data here, because Dustin Johnson is indeed closing the gap on Jon Rahm. And this is when the chat gets really quiet because everybody's got their head down in their phone, trying to make sure they get their bids in. And I see Jon Rahm continues to hold tight at $10.08. What you're asking him to do at $10.08 is essentially finish 11th or better. 11th would pay out $10.50 per share. 12th would pay out $10 a share. So even if he finishes 20th, you would not lose everything on Jon Rahm. You would just lose a couple of dollars per share. Dustin Johnson at $8.50. At the current moment, what you're asking him to do is finish 16th or better. Obviously, his odds are much better to finish inside the top 10, for example, than what that percentage is being indicated in the Jock market. We are seeing a little bit of movement on Patrick Cantlay. He's now up 45 cents to $6.45. We are seeing very little love for Rory McIlroy. So I'll give us a refresh here in a second, but Rory McIlroy is still at $6. Do you think Rory McIlroy is going to finish inside the top 27 of a 73-man field? If you do, you should be paying more than $6 for Rory McIlroy. Sung J M coming off of a 2-week hiatus, a hibernation. He never goes 2 weeks without playing. Is going to tee it up this week. He's $5.51. We're seeing some of the younger golfers. Scotty Scheffler coming in at $5. Joaquin Niemann, $5.35. And as expected, the Euros are kind of bringing up the back end of this. The Sami Valimakis, the David Lipskys, the Rafa Cabrera-Bellos, Andy Sullivan. I'll tell you what, Andy Sullivan's been playing well. I'll tell you what, Rasmus Højgaard at $2.94 won on the European Tour last year, I believe. He is a high upside player. The results have not been as good recently. Robert McIntyre has been excellent on the European Tour over the past couple of weeks. He's still hanging strong at $3.40. I'm going to give you a refresh here. Make sure that we have all of our numbers updated because we are probably 1 to 2 minutes away from this IPO closing. And if you're going to miss out on shares, let's see. All right, now we're getting closer to those double digits.
Early close.
Oh my God, that was
early close.
Oh man, that was super early. There's going to be a lot of values, I feel like.
Jeez.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm going to give this a second, make sure I have the right numbers. But if these numbers are what I think they are, there's going to be money to be made this week.
There's a ton of value this week.
Oh my God. Hold on. Let me just make sure I have this right. Let me get on the same page here. Yeah, I think this is over. I think I got the updated numbers.
Jeez, we're going to make a killing this week, fam.
All right, boys. So here we go. I got Jon Rahm, most expensive golfer, $10.08.
Yes, sir.
Dustin Johnson, $9.88. We did not get. We got one guy through 10. We only got 4 guys through 9, and nobody in the 8s. Joe, what happened? What was going on there?
I don't know. I think a lot of people may have got caught sort of holding the phone in the early IPO kind of close. May have got some people. So very interesting. I'm just still kind of digesting everything in front of me now and what happened, but. Yeah, these guys at the top are, Rory in the $7 range is unbelievable to see.
This is bonkers. This is really crazy because maybe people were waiting the extra 30 seconds and it bit them. But I mean, look, so John Rahm at $10.08, which is going to be the cheapest John Rahm has been in 2021. So that is 4 markets. He has been more expensive than this is pretty crazy. So he is essentially being asked to finish 11th or better. I mean, I don't even have to look up his top 10 numbers to know that it's better, than that, Joe. Yeah. And Dustin Johnson, even cheaper. I mean, what is most shocking, that we didn't get more, or that one specific guy? I mean, Rory's $7.84.
I think it's all shocking. I mean, DJ this week, I think his top 10 odds were like minus 160. At this rate, he at $9.50, he's got to finish 13th or better to pay that off. Like, wow. There's so much juice that was squeezed out of this little bit of IPO hour that I hope you all got as much as you possibly could and emptied the account this week, because there's going to be some major profits.
This sentiment here from Michael Van Veen, who says, I was expecting 858 close earliest. Yeah, that I think that goes for a lot of people from what I just saw. Looking even further down, Daniel Berger, winner last time we saw him, $7.05. Wow. Your man Brooks Koepka, 707. So let's see this. So Berger at 707. I mean, a top 20 in a 73-man field for Daniel Berger. Are you kidding me?
In Florida, like off a win, like, come on.
Wow. There is money to be made this week. I want to see what Lanto closed at.
I got Lanto. I'll tell you. He closed
Okay, let's go through. He goes at 5.
Yeah, close to 5. Yeah.
Let's go through. Let's talk about who you ended up going with, and did you get outbid on anybody, and who were some of the guys that ended up making your portfolio for this week?
So I got outbid on Sergio. I did not get any Sergio Garcia, but I ended up with 6 guys that I feel really good about, and I feel like I all got them all at a good price, and I got a lot of shares of them all. I got 50 shares. 50 shares.
Did you say 50?
50 of Justin Thomas.
Wow. So you are on the JT. You are forgiving. You are forgetting everything that you have seen in the last week. And you are saying 50 shares of Justin Thomas at a price that is probably, let me see, $9.
So he's got to finish 14th or better to pay off that.
That's what I was looking for. Wow. Yeah, okay. So
I feel pretty good about that. We obviously talked about it. The no cut king, his worst finish in like his last 7 events is 7th in a no cut event. Coming back to Florida, plays tremendously well at the Honda, was the number 1 ranked player when I sorted by stats at PGA National in the field this week. Just was out of sorts last week, but he is just, I think a lot of these, from what I've heard, and I don't pretend to be like a course expert, but from what I heard, these par 5s are long, and there's going to be a lot of wedges in their hand. I think that he's one of the best players in the world with a wedge. I think he just struggled putting on that POA grass. I'm hoping that the Bermuda and the familiarity back here in Florida, he's been through a lot with obviously the loss of his grandfather, and then getting the news from Tiger broken to him kind of live on the air this week. So yeah. I'm rooting for him. Hope he plays well. I feel really good about him finishing 13th or better, though. I'll tell you that.
Certainly, so do I. Okay, 50 shares of Justin Thomas. What else you get?
Okay, so I got Brooks, nice. $7.07 a share. I have Adam Scott, who we didn't talk about, but is $5.10 a share, and I feel like he's very, very much slept on this week. Sure. People were very high on Adam Scott through the West Coast, but look, if you just go to whatever database you look for stats and you click Nicklaus golf course designer, Adam Scott's going to be the number 1 player throughout his career on there. He plays Nicklaus courses incredibly well. He's a 2016 Honda champ, and I just feel like he was a little bit slept on. 29th guy like in the pre-rankings, so that's not great, but I feel like he holds some value there. Moving on, I have Lanto. My last 3 are Lanto. My last 2 are Lanto and Justin Rose. So I took some Justin Rose this week at $4.76, which is crazy. He's basically got to finish in the top half of the field to pay that off, and he showed some good form over there in Europe, coming off a couple good finishes. I think that he'll play very well. I think it should set up nicely for him.
Okay, this is really cool, and actually, we have Jock Market chiming in here. So the way that closing time happens, it's a random time within that 90-second window. So it looks like we were
Interesting.
on that. Yeah, we were on that early end, which it doesn't. 90 seconds just sounds like a very little amount of time, but like in practice, it's like, oh my god, that's a lot of time. So make
Yeah, totally.
I feel like next week there's gonna be so many bids earlier in the week because nobody's gonna want to be in that
100%.
situation. That's so
Yeah, no,
funny.
it's very cool that they do that, and I think the reason is so that people can't essentially cheat the
Oh, of
system.
course.
If you
Yeah,
know
of
when it's going
course.
to close, you're going to fire everything with 2 seconds left, and everyone's going to get stuck with either a bunch of shares or no shares, and it'd be very frustrating for all of us as a community. So
Yeah.
that's the fair way to do it.
Have you ever tried to bid on anything on eBay and just get sniped at
Oh,
the last second? Like this is the
yes.
best. This is the best way to do it. I want to pull up the rest of this and kind of go down towards the bottom. You know, you mentioned you got shares of Lonto, you got shares of Justin Rose. We're now in the sub $5 range. It's interesting to see two guys that I think are completely different in terms of sentiment right now. Ryan Palmer at $4.25, who has been a fantasy sweetheart for an entire year. And then Matthew Wolf, who has just completely disappeared, are both coming in at $4.20. And I'll throw Max Homa into that list as well, Joe, all closing in that 4.25 range. Is there one of these guys that you think is a better buy than the others?
I would not be on Homa this week. I would tend to lean Ryan Palmer, actually. I feel like he's a little bit slept on, and this should be a good setup for him. A very accurate driver of the golf ball. He should play pretty well. He's kind of gone to that more of a fade now, and I think that Nicholas Course is always set up famously for a fader. So you look at guys like him and Rahm, and they typically go well together in simultaneous events. So you got your number one guy there up at the top of the board that we always see every week. If he plays well, usually Palmer plays well, it seems.
Okay, before I flip to the second page, what are the chances that Jordan Spieth is like $1.50? Like, right? Like that someone bid up on Jordan Spieth. Like, are we gonna get there and see that?
I don't know.
Yes, I knew it. $2.09. He's $2.09. He's not playing.
I don't get it. So funny story. I don't know if my dad's watching right now, but my dad's on the Jock Market now. I got him on. He may be watching the show, and he tells me a funny story about when he was playing. It was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was at Pebble. And he's like, God, it's crazy getting down that electric final minute. And he was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't wearing my glasses, and I was trying to just put all my shares on Jordan Spieth. And he's typing in SP, and he thinks he's got all these shares of Jordan Spieth, and he comes back and he bought him all of JJ Spawn.
Oh no.
I had to laugh. I'm like, Pops, you gotta have them glasses on when you're making these picks. It goes
the
quick.
last minute. Yeah, it goes so fast. You gotta have the glasses on coming down the stretch.
And then of course he finished like top 5, and Spawn was an easy miscut.
Oh my god, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
Wear your glasses, people. That's the takeaway for this week. Looking at the value at the value plays, Cameron Champ is $3.02, and then kind of as we anticipated, the bottom of this range here is essentially all the guys that we thought would be, right. It's the Euro guys who are unfamiliar. It is the guys that are getting in from whatever tour that they are qualifying for. So this is not really all that much of a surprise on the second page, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Robert McIntyre kind of sticks out to me. I know a lot of people have kind of been very high on him and looking to pop. He seems like he was relatively well in a field like this. I'm not really sure. He doesn't have a ton of history playing over here. But yeah, I mean, I just think that you can essentially isolate any spot of the board this week in terms of IPO price and find one or two guys in there that should present you with a good opportunity to return some profit.
Paul wants to know if there's a video that has been made on how to play Jock Market. And do I recommend one? The answer is yes, both. So there is a video from the summer. It's on the RickRunGood YouTube channel. It's entitled "If Golfers Were Stocks," and then there's also an interview I did with Dave from Jock Market, which gives you a lot of idea of kind of the behind the scenes and how it all works, and a little bit of strategy as well. And then there are tutorial videos out there. So yeah, plug in Jock Market into YouTube. You'll probably find plenty of stuff to look at, and send me a message if you need me to send you the direct links. In game this week, Joe, I think is going to be really important, because I want to illustrate something really quickly here. With a no cut, how often, I mean, we just see guys so often make a move. So I just went back and looked at last week, and I was just kind of looking at the best players over the course of the weekend. And there are some surprising names in here. I mean, Francesco Molinari was the third best player on the weekend last week. Now he finished T8, but like imagine buying that on Friday night, right? Buying that on Friday night, holding on to it until the end of the tournament. Francesco Molinari over the final 2 rounds was the third best player in the field. Patrick Rogers was one of the best players in the field. He finished T12. So that's kind of what I'm trying to illustrate here is this is a long tournament, and these guys know they are guaranteed 4 rounds. There are going to be slow starters. There are going to be guys that are trying to fly up the leaderboard and taking on risks. And if you can identify them, that's where I think there's a ton of money to be made.
I agree. I think that, I try to kind of put myself a little bit in the mindset of kind of what these guys are thinking. And I think the top players are going to play their game no matter what. But this sort of mid-tier guys, and I talked a little bit to Chad about this, it's interesting. So when you're Friday afternoon and you've got 5 holes to play and you're kind of right above the cut line, you may be playing a little bit more conservative and just trying to make pars this week and just trying to get through the cut line. If you're right under it, you may be playing a little loose and aggressive to try and reach for that, versus this week is kind of an interesting dynamic of you can have your strategy and go out there and try and execute the best you can for 4 straight days and know that it's going to take a lot of birdies, and you don't have to necessarily worry about going home with nothing, right? And ended up paying them hotel bills and paying the caddy bills and paying the meals and not earning a single dollar. As soon as they peg the ground this week, they're getting a guaranteed check. So I think it frees them up a little bit to kind of go hunting.
Go hunting. That's a perfect way to put it, because that's what these guys are going to do over the course of the next 4 days. And especially, and we see this all the time, especially with the bigger names, right? Is, Bryson goes out and struggles in round number 1, but these guys flip a switch and they're able to figure it out. And if you are a Robert McIntyre, if you are a Sammy Valimaki, I mean, you've got nothing to lose here. You're getting your guaranteed $52,000 for showing up or whatever it is. And you can just try to move up, cash those checks and go hunting, as you said, Joe. So I think that there is this week more than many, there is a lot of play in the live market. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Yeah. So it all comes down to just keeping tabs on your app, seeing what these players' ask prices are out there for if you're interested in them. And at the same token, if you see one of your guys who maybe has a really hot putting round, and you think that they're at a fair price where you can unload some shares and take a guaranteed profit and then use that money to reinvest in another player who you can see, if their putting stats tend to flip, maybe they skyrocket up the odds board, or maybe they have a good weekend like you mentioned with Molinari last week. So ton of opportunities, ton of different ways to play this out. But yeah, it should be a very interesting week. I think it's the first time. Oh no, we had Century was a no-cut event, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so just be interested to see how it plays out with the new course and everything that kind of goes along with that. It'll be fun. I'm
trying to look at this list and figure out what is the best value. And I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I've narrowed it down to 3, I think. Well, okay, I'll try to narrow it down to 3. I think I like that range of Patrick Cantlay at $7.77, who has been one of the hottest players on the face of the earth. Terrell Hatton and Tony Finau, that mid-7 range where, I mean, let's be clear. And you mentioned this earlier, Joe, Finau finishing second sucks for outright tickets. It sucks for him. It's amazing in the Jock market, and
$20 a share. Yeah.
It's $20 a share. It's $20 a share. So that's where I've kind of identified that. Those are the 3 I think I like the most. Would you agree? Or is there somebody else I'm missing here?
I think those are very good value. Spot on with that. I think the one with the biggest sort of ceiling in terms of upside is just above them, and it's Rory. $7.80 for Rory. I don't think it would surprise a single person on the planet if he came out here and won this thing by 2 strokes back in Florida, where he always plays well. He mentioned in his press conference that he feels like the course setup is very similar to the Bears Club, which he plays out of. So look, it's Rory. We know the upside's there. It seems like his irons have been a little bit off. It seems like when they cut to Rory, he's got a 20-footer for birdie instead of a 6-footer that we're used to seeing. But he can flip the switch at any time. And just seeing him down there you're basically banking on like a top 15 finish for him in a no cut event in a shortened field. I would feel very good about that if I had shares of Rory.
This is a really interesting topic, strategy, concept to have. And Michael asks, with this value, could you offload some positions for a 15% profit right now? I mean, think about this. If you're holding Patrick Cantlay shares and he is $7.77, don't you think that I would be a buyer of Patrick Cantlay at like $9, because at $9, you're asking him to finish 14th or better. So there almost might be some trades here where, like Michael, for example, if he's holding Patrick Cantlay shares right now, could lock in, like without any risk whatsoever, without seeing a single shot be hit, profit. Or someone could also say, wow, there was so much value, I'm actually willing to pay more than that, even though I missed out on the. It's a really interesting dynamic we have right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you got a guy and you want to list a price out there, list it. There's a price for everything. I think that it really just depends on your strategy and how you want to play this. Like, are you risk averse, and do you want to just lock in? How much do you want to win? Right. If you lock in $50 worth of profits right now and not have to play the rest of the week, really, are you cool with that? Or, I'm here to gamble a little bit. I like the sweat of it a little bit. So if it were me and I had shares of Patrick Cantlay, I'd be holding them right now at $7.77 and feel pretty good about him finishing at 15 plus, doubling that number.
All right, before we get out of here, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you who the winner of this golf tournament is going to be. But the thing that there's so much strategy. There's something for everybody in terms of what your bankroll size is. This is not a concept that ends right now. It just begins. Phase 2 begins over the course of the next couple of days. So if you've not taken advantage, use the code POWER20, get your deposit bonus, get your $20 deposit bonus would have gotten you 2 shares or 3 shares of Patrick Cantlay, essentially. Yeah. Think about that $20 deposit bonus. So Joe, as always, you got to narrow it down to one golfer. You got to give me one name on Sunday evening who hoists the trophy at the Workday.
It's easy. It's easy, man. It's the guy that I bet. It's the guy that I have the most shares of. It's the guy that crushes the no-cut events. It's the king himself. Crown him. Justin Thomas wins the event. Wow. WGC World Golf Championship, Workday Championship at the concession. We'll go to Justin Thomas this week. Book
it took an hour and 2 minutes, but we finally got the full name of the tournament in the episode, which is awesome. Okay, I'm gonna go with So I've been flipping a coin between Terrell Hatton and Victor Hovland all day long, and I think it's Hatton. I think he shows up for these type of events. I think he's ready to rock and roll. So I'm excited for it. But either way, Joe, it's going to be awesome. We're going to get some golf. I'm looking forward to. Listen, we rarely get new courses on the PGA Tour. Yeah. Rarely. And here we go. A new course. Everybody's at a level playing field, and it's a stacked field, and there's no cut. This is going to be a ton of fun.
It's great. It's nice for me because I don't have to wait until like noon for these guys to tee off over here on the East Coast. So it'll be nice early start times, hopefully. Good to see the boys back in Florida. Great to see a new course. Thank you guys all for being here. While you're here, go down there and hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to Rick's channel so you get the notifications when we go live every week at this time for IPO close. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. It goes a long way and it costs you nothing. So I think it's a pretty good deal. You can follow Joe on Twitter at TourPicks. You can follow me at RickRunGood. This has been the Jock Market Power Hour for this week's WGC Workday. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.